Much. Let's talk about this more now with federal defense attorney Ronald Chapman. Ronald, it's always good to have you. As Kelly just laid out there, that cross-examination of Pecker will continue this morning. He's testified all week long about purchasing damaging stories about Trump, never actually publishing them, which emphasizes this catch and kill theory. Has he boosted the prosecution's case in your eyes?
It really hasn't moved an inch. I mean, the entire basis of this testimony is that a catch and kill scheme is somehow an unlawful conspiracy, which we know it's not. There were agreements between Donald Trump companies and the Inquirer to bury certain stories. Agreements like that, Pecker even testified, happen in this industry regularly, and they really haven't connected the dots between this and any unlawful conduct. Now, certainly, prosecutors will lay a basis for their case early, and they may try to connect those dots later, but we're still waiting to hear how they're going to cover up the weakness in their case, how they get this case to the felony that they need to overcome that statute of limitations.
I also wanted to ask you about the gag order. You know, Judge Merchan expected to rule, it sounds like next Wednesday, whether or not President Trump violated that order by talking about witnesses, key players in the case online, also in live comments he's been making before and after his days in court. How big of a deal is that if he is found in contempt?
Significant. So criminal contempt may include additional criminal charges. Civil contempt could include fines and monetary penalties. This can be a very severe allegation. But the strange thing about this case is the judge keeps sort of pushing this gag order hearing off. It's happening way after the original allegations of, I think, 15 violations and now 4 more. It's not a signal that the judge is taking this so seriously that it needs to be rectified and his speech needs to be curtailed immediately. Otherwise, that hearing would have been held after court in the evening, like it would for most of our defendants if we have the same allegations. I expect perhaps some warnings and some fines, but jail time's not really a possibility.
Okay, yeah, we'll see what plays out next week. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court, let's talk about that now. They're, of course, hearing arguments on whether the former president has absolute immunity to avoid charges in the election interference, classified documents cases. Based on what you heard yesterday, Ronald, how do the justices appear to be leaning so far?
Hands down, the ruling is going to be a grant of presidential immunity for official acts. The only real question here is going to be what is considered an official act and who gets to decide that. Will it be Judge Chutkan, the trial court, deciding what is considered an official act, or is that going to be something that would have to go all the way to the jury? Obviously, taking it to the jury doesn't make much sense, but I expect they will at least have the conservative votes for official act. I think most believe the D.C. Circuit went too far in stripping that immunity. You know, as Justice Gorsuch said, they're writing a case for the ages. Presidents need to be immune from the official act so that they can do what they need to do in office. 200 years of precedent is not hard to move forward from. Hands down, the Supreme Court will determine an official act.
And last question to you, when you call this a case for the ages, on such a weighty issue like this, do they need to be unanimous on this decision, or will there be a split, as there usually is? What are you expecting?
There likely will be a split. I mean, based on some of the questions, I believe Justice Sotomayor is certainly not going to be in the majority here. I think Justice Jackson probably won't be either based on some of the questions, but that still leaves enough for this vote to count and for immunity to be granted, which means we're probably not going to have a trial in that January 6th case, given that this decision will come out in July. Probably not going to have one before the election.
Before November. All right, Ronald Chapman, always good to have you. Have a great weekend, sir. We'll talk to you again next week, I'm sure.
Thank you. You too.